Quick recap on the sum tester program that we've been doing in class. I've done a version myself, not necessarily the same as everyone else's, but they're quite individual programs generally. And I just wanted to point out a few things that might be useful to people who have been working on this. First thing I'd like to point out is I've put comments into mine, which I don't think anyone really has done much of. Comments firstly at the top to explain what the program actually supposed to do, and then a comment at various points throughout, normally at places where there's a little bit of logic or we just want to explain exactly what's going on. So I've tried to explain as I go for the benefit of anyone who's reading it, which could of course be me doing maintenance in some years' time. Import random, we need to have that if we're going to have random numbers. So these two variables, if we need to keep track of something, we need a variable to keep track of that thing. Some people in class were asking me, how do I keep count of how many the users got correct? Well, you need a variable to store that information, and then you keep updating that as they get them wrong or right. A loop. While question count is less than 10, I've used the variable question count, and that's counting how many questions have been done so far. You'll notice right at the end of this loop, so the last statement in this loop, I've got question count plus equals 1, so that adds 1 to whatever value is currently in question count. So it'll start at 0 and then go up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if I've said less than 10, go from 0 to 9, it gives me 10 questions. Generate two random numbers, so you've now got this piece of code that you always know if you need to generate a random integer. You can just go and look at this example. This user input line we struggled with a little bit in class in terms of building up all of the little parts of the statement, and I'll show you what kind of questions. It basically says what is like 3 plus 4. So we had to have the stitching together pluses, the concatenation that stick together the strings. We have to turn each number into a string. This is kind of the ugly bit I think that people really struggled with, is this plus is the concatenation, sticking together the strings, and this is the plus that is displayed to the user as part of the sum they're doing. So it's really important to be able to follow what each part of this does, what each little speech mark and bracket does. It's not hard, but it is fiddly and you have to be very accurate with that. So turning that string user input into an integer, and I actually store that in a different variable just for the sake of making it easy to see what's going on. So user answer, if the user answer is the same as the value we get when we add the two questions, the two random numbers have been generated, then they got it right. So we add 1 to the count of answers they've got correct, otherwise we print wrong. So it keeps doing that 10 times, or until question count gets up to 10, and then the loop finishes, and we can see the loop is finished because we've gone back to our normal indentation, and it just does one last stitch together of the number that you got correct together with a little sentence to put it into a context, and that's it. So we'll just run that just to demonstrate. 9 plus 9, 18, correct. 1 plus 7, 9. Wrong. You need to test both possible routes. 12, yeah, no. I'm going to keep putting in some wrong answers and make sure we get to the end. And I got 3 out of 10, and I actually did do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions. So that's the kind of testing you need to do, that you got a correct number of iterations, and yes, I got 1, 2, 3 correct. Done.